Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Creative Contact with your host, Orion. Thank you so much for tuning in. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me on this sunny, beautiful day in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, in my last day in this apartment. Last time potting from Defensa, Calle Defensa, in El Barrio San Telmo. And yeah, we're moving tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to making that happen. Next time you see the boy, I'm gonna be in my new spot in Recoleta. It's gonna have some French vibes. Not my apartment, but the neighborhood does. It's cool. There's obviously that European influence going on over here. So there's a lot of Italian influence, but this feels like they call it like it has kind of like it's not Paris. Don't get it twisted, but they say it's like kind of like has like some mini Paris vibes to it. So it's cool, like old brick buildings, cobblestone streets, little like hypotenused isosceles triangles where like people hang out on like what are they called, like little plazas and stuff like that. So I'm stoked for it. I'm really looking forward to my whole next chapter in Buenos Aires in BA is to have a little bit more of a social circle. So I've got a friend out there. I'm gonna move a little bit closer to her so we can hang out more. There are nomad meetups that I've got people that I know recommended, so I'm trying to get out there, just trying to create more of a social experience. Since I've been here, it's been almost entirely solo. I've been just doing my own thing. I had that. The first month was about really, trying to figure out what I was doing next, trying to dig into, how to make money, what am I doing creatively, a little bit lost, a lot of long walks, all that stuff. Excuse me. And then the last month and change, I finally found a solid creative direction, and I also start a new job. I've decided to jump into sales. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And something I want to chat with you guys about is the last few weeks, I actually have some experience now in sales, working for a sales company that I can share with you. So there are a couple things I want to talk to you about today, just to kind of set the stage for you. One, this experience in the sales, how it's been going, kind of ideas, how I'm feeling about it, what's next, what I see happening next there. And then if you hear some crazy stuff in the street, again, we're in Latin America, I apologize. Number two, I want to talk to you about this idea that I've been thinking about in terms of content versus context. And then I'm actually going to pause this for a second because it is getting out of hand.
And we're back. So that's something I want to talk to you about. So it's going to be sales stuff. Number two, it's going to be content versus context. And then number three, I want to talk to you about this new kind of interesting idea around art and purpose that I have. Wow. They're probably going to be drumming. You know what? Screw it. We're going to make it work. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is the sales stuff, because this has been what's been most on my mind recently as I've been kind of going through this creative journey with how to make money. How do I find some skills that I have that I can deploy and something that doesn't make me want to shoot myself. And so that's where the sales stuff kind of came in. And so when it comes to this type of sales, this is, I think they call it like independent. It's not, I'm not working for a big company. This is going to be for like, pretty much you work for an influencer to sell their coaching or their program or something like that. So this one that I'm in, that I got on, that's called getting placed on an offer. It's about Airbnb, how to start your own Airbnb rental arbitrage business. And the way that the hierarchy kind of works in this sales structure is there's someone to be like an SDR, sales development representative. They're the ones who are cold calling, setting appointments. They're kind of bottom of the totem pole. And then you have people who are closers. So there's people who like get the deals. So the setters make the deals. These people close the deals. And then you have the people on like the sales team and the other folks that like run the integrations and other back end. And at the top you have like the coach or the influencer or whatever. So I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Recently, I've been doing the SDR stuff, setting appointments, a lot of cold calls, a lot of conversations, and it's been really rad. My first weekend, I set the record in the company for the most amount of appointments set, which was pretty cool. But I'm starting to realize that I'm just not, it's more of a volume game, it's more wide, and I'm just more deep. I really enjoy having conversations with people, but I want to have fewer conversations and have deeper ones. And so that's been really interesting that I think I'm really gutting more for a closing position. So that's what I'm going to kind of start trying to work on, is like talking to either this company or maybe even talking to my coach, my sales coach, because I'm built for like, you give me 5 conversations a day, those people are going to feel like they walked away with a new best friend. Like that's just the way that that's just my energy. You know, I'm more of a, I like to dig into stuff and hear about people's lives and try to figure out solutions and talk to them about that sort of stuff. So it's been cool. I've definitely learned some sales skills so far, like on cold calling, how to have those conversations, establish rapport, how to, you know, make people feel heard, all that kind of, you know, communication 101 type shit that you just get from putting the reps in. But now that I've had, you know, hundreds of calls, I'm excited to start putting that to practice. I feel like closing and sales, that's more like a skill that I'm interested in mastering, where I'm not really doing any selling right now. I'm kind of pitching them on how to like move along in the process, but I'm not actually like closing the deals. And that's the part that I really want to build that skill. So that's what I was like tossed and turned last night. So I was like, man, what type of stuff do I want to sell even, you know? And I was going through some sales calls that people have in this company I've been working for. And I just don't feel like Airbnb really does it for me. I feel like I'm super passionate about health and fitness stuff. And so I'd love to get on some sort of an offer that has to do, I think, with like health and fitness. I've been recently just learning a ton from this guy named Mike Israetel, fascinating doctor about, he's a professor and he talks about nutrition and health. And so I'm out here trying to get buff, boy, trying to get big. So it's been crazy. I've been dialed in, hitting full body 4 days a week, my boxing twice a week, my nutrition macros, got those dialed in. Making sure I'm eating in a surplus, making sure I'm hitting my rep ranges, time under tension, like everything that goes into lifting, getting buff, tempo. I'm learning a lot and really dialing in fitness and knowledge around muscle growth and muscle gain. And then also making sure, you know, learning a lot about cardio too, like the importance of cardio health and zone 2 and also, you know, VO2 max training and these different things that really make sure that, you know, my heart's healthy, brain's healthy, blood's going everywhere that needs to be, you know what I'm saying? Keeping sexual health healthy, and then also making sure I'm trying to get buff at the same time. So I've got just like, I love fitness. I love health stuff. I know a ton about that. I might as well have like a master's in kinesthesiology because of how many times I fucked my joints up and need to do rehab. So I'm just such a proponent of health and fitness and nutrition that I think selling that for me, I really feel like that's where my heart is. It's like selling some sort of coaching package around helping people take back their control of their life and their fitness and their focus, to me is really something that I feel like I could get behind. The Airbnb stuff, like I'm just not super hype on it. It kind of falls in the like passive income category. A lot of people come in, they like want to do some real estate and stuff, but they really, the dream, right? Something I've been thinking about, heard this phrase I love. You don't sell the plane ticket, you sell the vacation. So that's what I'm trying to think about with this, is it's like, you don't actually sell Airbnb, you're selling passive income. Same with the health stuff. It's like, you're not selling the health program, you're selling like longevity or people or confidence, you know, or somebody might want to feel, you know, sexy again in their relationship. You're kind of selling like, you're selling the actual like psychological triggers beneath the surface of whatever the offer is. And I feel like those I'm just more aligned with the vehicle and the medium when it comes to health and wellness. It's also just something I feel like I could deliver so much value on those sales calls just because it's something that I already know so much about and I'm passionate about. Airbnb, I'm just like, passive income, it just doesn't do it for me. So that's kind of sales stuff. It's going well. Like I said, broke that record the first weekend. Your boy's about it. It's interesting. A lot of sales feels to me, it's like very much about tonality, like controlling your tone, making sure you're like not always going up at the end like this, because it like portrays kind of insecurity and being like, hey, this is what it is, and I'm rounding down. At the end of my sentences, when I'm talking, I'm finishing here rather than finishing here. And so it's like this sort of like this control that when I think about even my past as an artist and wanting to sing and be a rapper, there's so much of that goes into like a vocal tone and vocal control, because when I was pivoting from like trying to be a rapper and like some more like sexy R&B stuff, it's hard for me to like sing in this register. I can be like, oh yeah, like I'm trying to take you out, baby. Like it just didn't work. So I had to like kind of shift into this alter ego that sort of like had a little bit more bass in the voice, you know, had a little bit more, maybe thought about tones differently and trying to like put that on a record and doing, millions of takes over and over to try to get those cadences and tones right. That has been interesting thinking about that now with the sales, because it's so much of it is about, it's not necessarily what you say, right? It's how you say it. And so it's been cool kind of thing how the music production shit is like starting to transfer into this, you know, life as an artist transfer into these other aspects of careers that I'm trying to, you know, experimenting with and building. But I can definitely tell already I'm 2 weeks in and I've had so many of these conversations already that I'm starting to like, man, I kind of want to shoot myself. Like, they're just so, you guys, you have so many of them, and I'm not able to go deep enough. Like, there are some people I've been chatting on the phone with, I'm like, I feel like we could be really good friends, dude. Like, I want to just keep chatting with them, but you have sort of these quotas you need to reach in terms of just volume. So I'm not able to do that compared to, like, I feel like if I could have 5-6 meaningful conversations a day, I feel like I could really knock it out of the park. So that's kind of my next stepping stone with the sales stuff, is like get into a closing role and trying to make that happen sooner than later. So it's good. Sales stuff is cool. Starting to make a little bit of money there, so that's exciting. Still a little bit insecure and sort of like 32 and back at like the bottom of the totem pole of this thing. But I had this really interesting, I didn't even have it, that's a lie. I heard this really interesting idea that I've been thinking about. So I want to transfer from sales stuff and a little bit of philosophy stuff with you. So this one I got from Seth Godin. He said recently on this podcast he had with Tim Ferriss that was so cool. He was like coaching Tim, and he was talking about, he was like, my life isn't, he's like, I don't have a career. He's like, my career is just a series of different projects. And as soon as he said that, something clicked for me that I was like, that's my life. I was like, that resonates so much with me, because I often feel insecure that I don't have, I'm honestly jealous. I'm really jealous. I'm envious of people who are like, I'm a scientist, and every day I wake up, I go to work, I have this big mission I'm working on, I'm working towards, and I'm excited about it, and it all makes sense towards this thing that I'm passionate about, that I had, right, for 15 years, 12, 15 years, the music stuff. But now that that's gone, it's like, damn, like a lot of times, even before in this conversation, I think about like, did I waste all that time? Obviously no, because you learn these different skills, but, you know, I'm just trying to think about like, I'm jealous of people that have that sort of a career where it's like they're sort of like a long, they're passionate about, you know, building a more, you know, fair internet, or building some sort of tool, you know, a software company, or, you know, there's something they're building towards. Or for me, I'm just like, I just want to make my art. And so that's been interesting. It's kind of trying to figure out what sort of a job I can do that I just don't hate so much that it makes me want to kill myself, so that I can, you know, continue to do my art shit. But loved that idea. That like, I don't have a career, I just have different projects. Like my life is just projects, whether it's like music projects or these like art poem pieces that I was doing last year in India, you know, short videos, the YouTube channel. Now it's books, right? Writing books. And so that was a really helpful reframe, rather than think to like, oh man, I'm falling behind, to be like, okay, like you just like stay make it one project at a time, continue to deliver your art to the world and keep it pushing. And so in terms of those projects, I had one I think I talked about last time, super inspired by Juno Diaz. So I was writing this collection of like they're almost like short stories, but they're all like centered around relationships. I'm calling them Lessons in Love, at least right now, which is kind of cheesy, but might not be the final name, but it's pretty much like what I'm learning in partnership with these different folks, and what these women have taught me, you know, along the lines. I find I often learn more about myself when I'm in partnership with others, because it really forces you to look and come to grips with parts of yourself that you might not otherwise, when you aren't in those compromise situations, or when you don't have to compromise so much, when it's just you know? And so those have been fun. Been working through those. And then recently, oh, it's got super dark again. Recently, bro, I read this book recommended to me by my writing coach, changed the game for me. It's called Fuckboy. Who would have thought? But the way that it's written in terms of style is super cool. And it's about a guy who's living in West Philly in his late 20s, who's a SoundCloud rapper and like working bullshit dead end jobs. And I was like, this should have been my book. You know, I was like, this was my book to write, and this dude beat me to it. But so it goes. I think that's a good sign of art. When I see somebody do something, I'm like, oh, and you feel that fucking pressure in your heart, because you're like, that should have been my piece. You know, that should have been my project. But he beat me to it. It's all good. I'm going to do my own style. The problem is that it's written so cool, and it's written in a way that I've never seen another book written before. And so I started going down the rabbit hole of who inspired him to write this book. And there's this other guy, I think named Sam Pink, who wrote this book named Ron Tell, I think. So I started reading that, going down that rabbit hole. And so I've just been on this like alternative, experimental kind of literature kick recently. And it has been like no holds barred. Like, it's all I can think about. It's like all I spend my free time doing, just like obsessed with this writing project. And yeah, man, it's cool. It's really cool. And so the way that I've been thinking about the writing is, again, another podcast I heard this last week. This guy named Hugh Howey. He's one of the most successful self-published authors alive. And he's talking about the power of self-publishing, which I'm bullish on. And there's the sun again. And so he was like, what he recommended was, he's like, rather than spending a ton of time like polishing one perfect lotto ticket, he's like, punch as many tickets as you can. And I was like, that makes so much sense. And so I think my goal is, moving forward with the books, the writing, more. It's like, keep them shorter, produce more often, ship more often, punch those lotto tickets, keep it moving. Because this is actually a perfect transition into the next philosophy idea I want to talk to you about, which is this idea of content versus context. And when I talk about, like, I don't know why I keep saying that with the TH. When I talk about, I think it's, I want to say think. So I was like, it's a combination between talking and think when I talk about. But when I talk about these ideas, I think, for me, I get caught between, like, is it about quality, is it about quantity? Can you do both? And I think you can. One of my favorite rappers, Russ, he did this Song a Week challenge, which I did when I was making music too, because I just like to make stuff, keep the sword sharp. But with the writing, I realized that I have these cycles of inspiration that will kick in, and it's like, it's like the muse pops up, and I gotta, like, boom, take advantage of it. And so I have these two projects I'm working on currently at the same time. One is that kind of Lessons in Love book. This other one I've just been cranking on the last week since discovering this book, Fuckboy, and Rontel, and this kind of like alternative style of writing that I've just been super high on lately. And it makes me realize, like, I think I can do 2 a year. 2 books a year. I'm just going to just keep writing, keep the sword sharp, and like make shorter, more potent books rather than trying to like polish some huge masterpiece. Because here's what I've been figuring out about masterpieces is that they're subjective. Surprise. But it was this idea that I had because I was reading recently this book called The Force by Don Winslow. Love Don Winslow. He is, to me, he's like the Ridley Scott of writers. Or maybe he's, I wouldn't say Spielberg, but like whoever the dude is, that Christopher Nolan. He's like the Christopher Nolan of writers to me, where each book is like so immersive. There's a difference between The Transporter with Jason Statham and Interstellar, right? Like, you feel the difference. There's a difference in quality, in vision, in complexity, and that's what Don Winslow is to me. Is he's like Christopher Nolan of writing, where you go into his books and it's like a world. It's like lots of characters. It's a very complex. You might not always fully understand what's happening. He does years of research for each one. Multiple plot lines, multiple love stories, different perspectives. It's like you're in Dark Knight. It's like you're in the world compared to maybe like a John Grisham book. No offense to John Grisham, there's different, or like your kind of typical like a Baldacci airport novel where it's like, oh, cool. It's like you pop in, it's cool, bop, 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 cool action. This is the plot, this is the love story. Here's the final thing, and keep you moving. Next one is different. There's levels of the game. But what I realized was my dad doesn't really fuck with the Winslow books. He liked one I recommended to him, but they're almost too much for Pops. Same with Interstellar. Same with Inception, right? Like, my pop, they're not like, give him like a Jack Reacher book. Give him a Jack Reacher movie. Give him Transporter. Give him a solid movie where the good guys are good, bad guys are bad, bad guys get it in the end, love story works. Give Dad Mission Impossible, he's happy every time. Which made me think about the difference that quality is actually non-existent. Because if I give you Interstellar and you aren't into space shit, context, I can give you a masterpiece, content, quality, but it's not going to match, it's not going to be in alignment. It doesn't really matter how good it is if the fit isn't right. If the context isn't right, the content doesn't matter. And so it was really liberating for me thinking about that, because right now I feel behind the 8 ball. I've been writing for 2 years consistently. And I feel like I'm like, damn, like a lot of people have been, writing since either the early 20s or undergrad or high school or whatever. So I'm like, I'm a decade behind this shit, but I'm like, I'm passionate about it. But I realized that I don't have to be the best. I don't have to be Christopher Nolan if I can create something that feels potent for somebody who it's meant to be for. Meaning, there's still hope. Keep hope alive. Also meaning, I need to have the balls to like put a stake in the ground and be like almost unabashedly me, and to like be okay with people not liking the writing, not liking my style of writing, not liking even me as an author, and to like really embracing that and not pandering, even though as I'm writing in this style that can be a little abrasive, and it might have a little slang, it might be a little close to the bone, a little raw, at points maybe even misogynistic, or like you might not even like the protagonist. Like points where you might be like, this guy's kind of an asshole. And at points, it's very it's auto fiction, so it's based on my life, not entirely realistic, but too, sometimes that has been me. I'm not always perfect. And that like to learn like that's okay. Like I'm really trying to like take the mask off and really write like just as close to the bone as I can, where I feel scared about putting this out there. And like it actually, when I'm really second guessing, like, man, should I talk about this? And I'm like having that thought to be like, I don't know what people are gonna think. Like that's the sign to be like that. Yes, like that's what you should be writing, because if you try to, even if you're building product, whatever it is you're doing, but I think especially with art, is it's like you try to be for everybody, you're gonna be for nobody. And so it's better. My audience might not be I might not have the blockbuster summer film. I might not have the Interstellar, Inception, whatever. But if I can like really dial in to a certain feeling and make certain people feel seen, like then it's good. It could be even better than a blockbuster. Might not be at the same scale, but for certain people it might resonate even more because the fit is right. And so that's been really inspiring for me, is to be like, Kia, you don't have to be the best, but you do have to push your limits, right? You don't have to have the most skill, but you need to be afraid, and you need to, really make something that's potent and that some people will not fuck with, because that means on the other end that people will be like, wow, I can't believe somebody wrote this. I feel like you wrote this just for me. Kevin Kelly, 1,000 True Fans type shit. And so for me, I've been really trying to push those boundaries, and also realizing how much this content thing just plays out in almost every area I've seen in life. And it gives me hope in a lot of ways. My parents right now, they're working on building they want like a back porch on their little house, little cabin. And they had like this amazing architect come in and like sketch out these plans. Like this guy's like a PhD, or like they were like, it was amazing what his vision was, but they're like, it wasn't for us. They had another guy come in and just like was like, yeah, he'll keep it simple. Like took him like an hour, and like that works. And it just, for me, I'm seeing this everywhere in my life of like context more than content. Like doesn't matter as much if it's a masterpiece. It depends on like who it's for. And myself too, right? Like every year there's like these bestseller lists of like, or the most acclaimed books. And a lot of time I'll make a couple pages like, meh, but like you give me something that like this fuckboy book, or, This Is How You Lose Her by Junot Diaz. And I'm like, this dude gets it. Like, or this woman, like, what's it called? Knows How to Execution. I've recommended this book to so many people, and only one person's read it. This has been my brother. Shout out my big bro. One of my favorite books of all time. Written by a woman, but her psychology of men is so good that it's like, I just feel seen, And I think that's really the key with good art. Is even last week I went to see, what was it called? Poor Things with Emma Stone. And that's somebody's vision. Like that movie has guts, like, because it's not like anything you've seen before. And if you haven't seen it, you should, because it's fire. But like that again, not from my dad. Amazing movie, incredible acting. They're gonna win all the awards, but like, doesn't matter how good it is. My dad's not watching it, And so I think like that that's a process for myself. As I kind of come in contact with like periods of fearlessness, periods of confidence, periods of like self-awareness, being like, okay, Kitty, you're onto something, stay there, and then start to maybe get a little bit more insecure, or like, since I don't have any proof yet of anything really working or not, I'll kind of circle out again, get in my head like, man, I really want people to like this, and kind of want that people-pleasing part of me to come out again, or wanting it to be successful, and kind of maybe start to like circle farther away from like that, and then it's like, really like getting, in your edgy material, kind of circling farther away, and then kind of like leaning back into it, you'll kind of hit these rhythms again. It's just funny how it works. But it's been something I've been obsessed about recently, really thinking about, like, if I want even a chance to be able to make this thing work, like, it's gotta be as like honest and different as I can possibly go. And that's a scary place to be, because you might not even like it, but I hope at least that you respect the heart, that it takes to go for something like that. I also have been struggling with this idea of finding these works I really love, and then trying to not be too derivative of them, which is a struggle, because especially right now as I'm learning to write, I can see how much it bleeds into my own writing. But I'm hoping that if I can, stick with it, I'll find, like, I might be able to like borrow ideas from the style. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be, it can be, I'm inspired by these things, so it is derivative in some sort, like in some sense, but not so much that it feels like, a carbon copy, I guess. And so that's like a little art update. I've been working my ass off on that, and just realized, like, man, I'm just not sure why I can't seem to like do real life very well. But maybe it's this weird obsessive thing I have, but like, when I get into projects, that's the artist in me, man. Like, it feels weird, but it feels like nothing else really matters. I mean, not in a bad way, like family, friends, of course. But like the job, it all feels just like a means to an end, where like I just wish I did just like, I have to like pour myself into this thing. It's like a very much obsessive piece, part of me, which I love when I can like do it. But I'm like, man, I really need to buckle down and like start making some serious money, so that I can just like peace out and just like go to bed in Kija, or like bounce out to some Latin American like little city and just like post up and just like work on his books. But I'm starting to accept that more. I think for a long time I wanted to be the businessman. I wanted to, be the entrepreneur, and I think I still can be, but I'm really understanding and accepting that I just have this artist's spirit, that like nothing feels as exciting to me, nothing grabs me as much, and like money, yes, like I need to be responsible, but it's only for me as like, insofar as it's only money just for me is enough to like buy me more time writing. 5 hours out. So that's where I am. New goals I've been thinking about. Thinking about money, thinking about life, thinking about future. New goals. 1, I want to write my books. 2, bang my wife. 3, walk my dog. 4, play with my kids. Not in that order. That could be confusing. That could be messy. I don't want anyone to feel like they're above or below the dog or the books. But that's my North Star, and gonna keep chipping away at it. But I do feel like before I can, and maybe it's an obsession that I'll need to learn to wrangle if I want to eventually do the partner family thing. But right now there's a piece of it that like I just do feel like since I'm playing catch up, everything else is kind of like I am putting a little bit on the back burner. Also, I'm like it goes fast, but I still have time, and putting that effort into this shit that just, you don't have so much time in a day. And so I'm hoping to make some, grind away in obscurity for maybe 10 years before I, make anything worthwhile. But it's going to be a fun 10-year grind, and I've just been having a blast making stuff. So I'm excited for you to read it. I've got these 2 little projects, the love story, this kind of like interesting experimental one I've been working on, dying to like get something concrete down so I can show it to you. But that's kind of a little update from me, and looking forward to talking to you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate you more than you know. Check you in the next one. Peace.